Let's spend a minute on what's happening on Capitol Hill, because it's confusing, I think, to the average person who does not pay a lot of attention to continuing resolutions or these end of year budget wars that always seem to wind up the same way, with them saying, just fund it under the same terms we've been funding it. So in a nutshell, what's happening is we're going to run out of money to fund the government. They tried, including Speaker Johnson, spearheaded an effort to try to continue the existing funding, but with some hikes, like pay hikes for Congress and ongoing funding for some very controversial organizations, but just to sort of kick the can down the road to March. And the Republicans, some 30 of them in the House, who never vote for these, who just always say this is so irresponsible. What are we doing? We have enormous debt and deficits. We're not going to support this. Necessitated Speaker Johnson, he would say, reaching out to some Democrats to get approval for this bill. That necessitated all these spending extravaganzas, because they won't support it unless they get some of their favorites in there. And the whole thing wound up a very ugly nightmare that was about to be shoved through. And then Vivek and Elon, who are running Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, this extra governmental watchdog on spending, stepped in to say, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And that there was blowback. And then Trump dropped in with another message, which I'll get to in 1 second. Anyway, the whole thing blew up. It all blew up. And now they might have a new deal that's like a very slimmed down version of all this. But for the people at home who are lost already with me, with this back and forth, Steve, what is the bottom line? What do they need to know?
But here's what I think is important. The fiscal year of the government runs out on September 30th. The appropriations, the budget, all should have been done. Because of the election year, the kind of Republican establishment wanted to kick the can down the road. So it started with the CR even on October 1st. And what we know from October and November, from the numbers that have been put out by the government, we've had the two biggest deficit months in recorded history. $674 billion of deficits in the first 2 months. Are going to be almost $800 billion to $1 trillion in the first 90 days of this fiscal year. Right now, we're adding about $1 trillion of new debt through deficits every 100 days. I called this a year ago, and this is what's happening. The projection, Megyn, for 400 days from now, basically the 1 year anniversary of President Trump's inauguration of the 20th, is $40 trillion in debt. So in that context, this whole thing of another CR, because people would just say, let's get this thing sorted now. The CR was to kick it into past January 20th. So President Trump would have an attempt with Russ voted OMB, in Vivek, in Elon at DOGE, to actually come up with the House members and actually come up, because all taxes and all spending have to come from the House, according to the Constitution, that President Trump would have a thing to. So this is going to be a very simple kick it into past 20th, and maybe give him a couple of months. So let's say March, because we hate CRs. What happened, and you saw Johnson spending all this time with Elon, and he's going to UFC, he's walking into the UFC. UFC, he's at the Army Navy game in the box. He's spending a ton of time with President Trump in Mar-a-Lago and with Vivek and Elon. And what happens is he drops this thing the other day that needs to be voted in 24 hours. It's 1,500 pages. It is, and remember, the CR itself, because when you do continuing resolutions, you're just basing it upon the approved spending from the previous year. So the CR in for the 90 days in any one quarter is about $500 billion in spending, or almost, on top of that, he layered on new spending of about $300 billion. This is an $800 billion, almost $1 trillion package. So, but worse, 80% of it was Hakeem Jeffries. And if you look at the 1,500 pages, you're a lawyer. This is a highly negotiated legal document. It's ready to be made into a law, not an executive order. This is a law. It's 1,500 pages in total giveaway to the Democrats. I mean, biolabs in Ukraine, more stuff on the pandemic, more stuff backing Fauci. The Global Engagement Center, the thing that you and Mike Benz and others ran about all the time, that's fully funded for another year. This was 80 to 90% of Democratic priorities. And now we know, as we peel it back, that Schumer, McConnell, Hakeem Jeffries basically negotiated with this guy, and he didn't tell anybody. The problem is he dropped it on people another $800 billion in spending. Nobody planned on, never got Trump in the loop, never got Vivek and Elon in the loop. And then lied about it even on Fox. He goes on Fox and Friends and says, well, I'm on a message chain with Vivek and Elon. And I walked them through that we only have a couple of votes in the House and they're all fine with this. Well, they weren't fine with it at all. And the more you peel it back, it's terrible. So that got thrown out. And then you had this whole fiasco, and President Trump, I think, feeling he wasn't being dealt with straight, started to put some demands, particularly I want to increase the debt ceiling. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but there's a number of instruments called reconciliation that will take place early in President Trump's second term, that the debt ceiling issue can be incorporated in there. And I hope what they're doing, first off, if this has got to be what it is, to shut the government down. Let's just shut it down and wait till Trump gets there. And they're going to try to extract as much pain in the American people. They're going to tell TSA to go home, although TSA are vital personnel. They're going to shut down the airports over Christmas. I mean, Biden would extract a lot of pain from the American people, but I think you got to say at some point in time, enough is enough. Now, it turns out, Megyn, up there, I think what they're intended now is, it looks like they're going to break it down into 3 separate bills. A clean CR that just kicks it like they should, just 90 days with nothing. It just says we're going to continue the spending, kick it out to March 20th, which was the original plan. Then this farm bill, because the farmers are under pressure and the banks there are not getting paid, it'll be a separate bill, 10 or 20 billion for the farmers. And then the last will be the relief of FEMA, which normally would have to have an offset because we have tough decisions to make. And I'm not sure the FEMA money is not there. They're just not paying it. Biden's just putting the screws.
110 billion.
110 billion. What normally we would have offsets for that. That's an offset measure. But because in the hurry, and I said, listen, this is how you get 40 trillion in debt. And I'm not so sure FEMA doesn't have the cash right now. I think that's a Biden regime putting the screws to MAGA in Western North Carolina and Florida. But be as it may, there'll be a separate vote on that. And what I understand, the latest, just when I sat down with you, is that the cuts and offsetting cuts and the debt ceiling will be dealt with in the first reconciliation, which will be about the border. And I would hope that that's there in the 20th. Bottom line for your audience, we have a very dysfunctional system. And Johnson's got to go. Maybe we can talk about that. But it's not just individuals. It's not just personnel. We have a systemic problem. And the systemic problem is we are like a heroin addict. We are addicted to federal spending. It's the cause of inflation, and it's going to destroy this country. Of everything Trump's got to do, stopping these endless wars, seal the border and deportations of the 12 to 15 million. The one that's the toughest is the intervention to break the addiction to spending and to get our hands around, to get our arms around this out of control, budget and national debt. Or when you're around the Christmas tree with your husband, look at your children and just understand that we're passing them a catastrophe and a crisis that will make 2008 and the Great Depression look like garden parties.
Part of the problem is, most of the spending is on entitlement spending, and no politician, including Trump, wants to touch that. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security.
But hang on. Hold on. When politicians tell you that is a problem. Listen, the little guy out there, he has one thing. He has a contract. He has a contract for Social Security. It's $1,200 a month, and he's got the Medicare. It ain't a lot, but it's what he's got, and he's not going to give it up. Well, look at this fiasco the last 40 hours. Why would you trust a politician and say, look, just let's get into the entitlements, we're going to sort it? No. The people that say that, the politicians say that, don't want to do the hard work and discretionary spending. We have $1.5 trillion of discretionary spending, right? That you have to attack that. You have to start there. You have to start there. And look, I was a naval officer for 8 years. I spent 4 years at sea on a destroyer. My daughter, as you know, is a West Point grad that served in Iraq. We're hawks, but we're not endless war hawks. You got to start with the Defense Department. The Defense Department's budget has to be cut. It just has to. You can't have we have now an NDAA at $900 billion. We can't afford it. The social programs have to be restructured. Once we get discretionary spending and people see that we're serious people, and it's going to be pain. There's no doubt there's going to be pain. There is going to be pain. All the easy decisions were 10 and 20 years ago. We now have a balance sheet, 36 trillion of debt, increasing by $1 trillion every 100 days. So all the easy things are gone. It's now down to the hard. Inflation's not going to go away while you have this massive spending because the debt increases and you got to refinance a third of it. every year. The math here is not that complicated. It's the political will. And hopefully President Trump, he's got Scott Bessent, he's got Russ Vought, he's got a great team. But people that back President Trump and people that are coming to our movement now, particularly working class African Americans and Hispanics, have got to understand that the country needs a reorganization economically and particularly about this federal government, or we're not going to be a republic in another decade. You saw this from the assassination on the street. They shot a guy in the back. Some rich kid shot a guy in the back. And if you look online, 95% of these kids online, that's their lived experience. I'm not saying it's proper. I'm saying that's where it is. We have two choices in this country. We need to go down this MAGA revolution, this populist nationalist revolution, this peaceful, that's now getting more and more people involved in it, more and more ethnicities, more color, more races, and more economic groups, the working class, middle class, or you're going to have a French Revolution. You can see it coming.
For those of us who have been holding our breath for the past several months, we can finally exhale in the wake of this presidential election, right? Work can finally be done on the major issues that this country's facing, and one of the most significant is our national debt. Look, the fact is our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled by anyone. So the strategy remains the same when it comes to your investments. You might want to diversify your savings. Virtually all the experts say that's a good idea. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control and out of our president's control that it really can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you if you would like to convert all or part of an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, which is like a hedging of the bets. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. You just text MK to 989898 and you get your free info kit. And plus right now you will receive a free 1 ounce Silver Eagle for every $5,000 purchased Silver Eagle coin. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.